Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the movie No Time to Die. Fun fact, Daniel Craig is now the longest serving Bond, with him portraying the character for 15 years, while Roger Moore has portrayed Bond in the most films. This movie came out in 2021 and stars Daniel Craig, Leia Seydoux, and Rami Malek, and was directed by Cary, Joji, Fukunaga. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. James Bond is living a nice retired life until he is reunited with an old American friend by the name of Felix, who recruits him for one last mission. In this mission, things become a little bit more complicated, which makes Bond have to reunite with some old friends as well as some new ones to stop this new villain from killing lots of people. The cast for this film is just amazing. You have Daniel Craig, who was in Knives Out. Rami Malek was in Bohemian Rhapsody. Leah Seydoux was in The Grand Budapest Hotel. Lashana Lynch was in Captain Marvel. Ben Whishaw was in Mary Poppins Returns. Naomi Harris was in Pirates of the Caribbean. Jeffrey Wright was in The Hunger Games. Anna de Armas was in Knives Out. Ralph Fiennes has been in so many great movies, but he was the iconic Lord Voldemort in the Harry Potter films. Cary Joji Fukunaga also directed season one of the show True Detective. Don't forget to subscribe. No Time to Die is a spy movie intertwined with a love story. If you like The Bourne Identity, Mission Impossible, or any of the James Bond movies, then I suggest that you give this film a try. No Time to Die is the final film for Daniel Craig's version of 007. It's a heartfelt send off for his version of James Bond that has been in our lives for the last 15 years. One thing I always look for when watching James Bond films is the opening sequence as well as whatever the theme song is going to be and who's going to be singing it. The opening sequences in these movies are some of the best that I've ever seen in any other movie. I love how the opening sequences for these James Bond films foreshadow things that are going to be shown throughout the film, but it does it in a way so it doesn't spoil the plot of the movie. But if you have seen the movie and then go back and watch the opening sequence, you'll be able to see how some of the things were foreshadowed in that opening sequence. The theme song for No Time to Die is sang by Billie Eilish, and I'll be honest, at first I had my, apprehensiveness in her singing the song, but I will say that she exceeded my expectations and she did a phenomenal job with her song No Time to Die. And it went perfectly with the opening credits, and I love to see it and hear it in theaters. It was amazing. No Time to Die had some beautiful locations, and I was jealous that I wasn't there. Even the villain's lair was amazing and it looked really cool. There was some parts that were like super beautiful, but then there were some parts that weren't as beautiful, but I still felt that they were super cool. When I was younger, I used to play this game, James Bond Nightfire. And when I was watching this film, a lot of the locations seems like they would be cool locations to have in like a James Bond video game. And so I thought it was cool how this film not only had cool locations, but it made you feel at some points like it could have been a cool addition to like a James Bond video game. So if they are thinking about doing that, that would be cool to include some of the locations that were shown in this film, even some of the ones that were shown in other James Bond films. I saw this film in IMAX, and let me tell you, the visuals were clean and crisp. I usually don't notice the lighting in films, but I felt like the lighting was done really well in this film and really highlighted what they wanted you to see in the moment, as well as making the characters be like the center of the film because the lighting really directed your eyes to them instead of directing it to other things in the background. There's a scene in this movie that takes place on some stairs, and it looks like the camera is just following Daniel Craig throughout, his journey up these stairs, instead of there being like a whole bunch of jump cuts. I thought that this scene was cool because it's very easy, I feel like, in films to add jump cuts in there to show, how much action is going on. But I think it's a whole nother level where you have like a cameraman actually following them because I think it makes it seem like the viewer is actually following along with the character the whole time. And there's not all these different cuts that, are edited into the film. It's like you're just on this journey with them as well. And I think that that's cool to see in a film like this. This is the fifth film in the Daniel Craig saga of James Bond movies. And I think that a lot of people ask the question of, do you need to watch the other films in order to understand this one? I think that you can get away without seeing the other films, but honestly, what's the fun in that? They're all great films, and I would encourage you to watch them as well. And with this movie, there are some minor callbacks to the other films, but this film really does stand on its own. I did love, though, how they did include these other little callbacks from these other films to show you that the whole world of, this James Bond is connected and that those films aren't just one offs, that, there is a bigger picture that they have for these films. We see the return of a lot of characters from other James Bond movies while also being introduced to some new ones. I think that for the films that Daniel Craig has starred in as James Bond, they have chosen some really good actors to portray the villains. Starting right out the gate, they had Mads Mikkelsen and they had Javier Bardem in later movies as well as Christoph Waltz. So I felt whoever was going to be the next villain had really big shoes to fill. Rami Malek is the villain in this film, and I think that he delivers. He does a phenomenal job as the villain, and I thought, that he is a very well thought out villain where he has this plan and he has a way to execute it. And I just love that in this film, seeing him step into this role and seeing, how he does in this villain role because I felt that it was like a different type of role that I hadn't really seen him in. And so I really enjoyed him as the villain. Daniel Craig has been an amazing James Bond. I remember when he was first announced as James Bond, I hated the idea of him playing him just because I grew up with Pierce Brosnan as James Bond and I used to really enjoy those films. But Daniel Craig came and exceeded my expectations. I love how he portrayed James Bond as a character who is very flawed, but is also a person that you never want to be your enemy. I've loved his portraying of the movies, and I would have loved to see more movies of him, but I felt like this movie was the perfect send off for him. Daniel Craig playing James Bond has made me want to be an international spy and travel the world. He just made it look so cool and so fun. And so I just loved his character, and I think Daniel Craig did an amazing job as James Bond. My favorite scene from this movie is when we see Anna de Armas partnering up with Daniel Craig. I loved Anna de Armas since Knives Out, and this movie is a reunion of sorts, considering her and Daniel Craig are both in that film. I think she did a phenomenal job in this film and showed how badass she was. When I left the theater, I was still thinking about her time on screen because it was just such a cool scene, and I thought she did a fantastic job. No Time to Die is a perfect way to wrap up Daniel Craig's time as James Bond. It's a heartfelt send off that will make you emotional while also bringing in lots of high stake missions. If you haven't seen No Time to Die, I highly suggest that you go and watch it. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.